Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Uh, Today I'm just going to do a lot of little projects, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff that it entails setting up these projects, plus, you know, some doing, and it's nothing real special, but it's things that have to be done, and uh, without it, it's just not going to look right or it's not going to work right. I'm going to do a little electrical, I'm going to do some plating, I'm going to do some carburetor work. So let me show you. Okay, one of the things I'm going to get into this morning is the stator for the TC125. Everything really looks pretty good. I think it's more than likely original points and condenser in it. But the problem is this right here. The wiring is, I think the wiring is okay. It's just the sheathing is all hard and set. So we're going to remove the sheathing and put some new stuff on. And the best way to do this, especially if you don't have to go into a lot of the, unsoldering or anything like that, especially with this type of connector, the easiest way to do it is to remove the connector. And you just do that with a pen tool on these. I'm sure I'm making that sound a little easier than it really is, but generally you can just go in and you can find that pin. If you've got the pen tool, you can just slide it in, and once you find it, you can you can pull that out. There you go, just like that. But before you do that, make sure that you make a little map showing the connector. I always do it the same way every time, and I look at the connector just like this, and I draw a picture of it. You can see the little points up here. I draw a picture just like that here and go ahead and put in my colors. And in this case, this one down here in the corner is vacant. So I've got 5 wires coming into here, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of them, and then we're going to remove the sheathing, and then I'm going to try to put it on. I'll clean these terminals up the best I can, and I will see if I can get the new sheathing on with the terminals in place. More than likely I can, and then we'll put the connector back on. But you know, it's not the wires that are the problem here, it's the sheathing. Once the sheathing comes off, the wires are flexible enough, and as long as there's nothing torn in there, you know, we've got a little crink right here, but I don't think it's tore through. Actually, that's where the clamp goes on the case to hold this in place. So as long as nothing's damaged inside, and the wires aren't hard, and I don't think they are. I mean, they're plenty pliable here. Then we'll just put the new sheathing on and put the connector back on, and we'll be good to go on this. Another little item I'm going to do is some carburetor parts, and yesterday I had some, when I was putting the engine cases back together, I noticed that this is the drain for the case, and this is the fill indicator plug. You fill the oil to this. They're looking like they need a little help. These oil injection banjo bolts are needing some little love, and the carburetor parts are going to need some love. I've got the 2 springs, I've got the lock washer, the spring, and the choke. All this stuff needs to be cleaned up and replated. This stuff here is, most of this will be, I will put in the mild acid, the aluminum cleaner, aluminum brightener, and it'll clean most of this up. What it doesn't clean up, I'll buff with a Scotch-Brite. And of course the carburetor itself is going to need to be cleaned and put in the brightener also. And something else I'm going to plate, I'm going to try, I've nickel plated these items in the past. They turn out pretty good. I think I'm going to try zinc plating on them, because they look to be zinc plated from the factory. So I'm going to try that in the zinc plater along with these parts, and probably the shifter also. So these parts I'm going to work on, and we'll clean up this this little pile of carburetor parts and the carburetor, and we'll see what else we can get into. I'm sure there's plenty to go around. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my plating materials out, and I'll kind of go through some of that so you can know how to set this up. I talked about it before. I bought my kit from Caswell. They're a good supplier. They've got everything you need, and it works very, very well. So you can kind of take and see the condition of these parts now. And these, let's see, the springs, the washer, all these items right here, they're zinc coated and then chromate coated. So that's the nice little yellow greenish iridescent coating that you see on there, and this really does a fine job doing that. These right here, all this stuff will be just zinc coated. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Okay, I'm just going to go through some of the setup here. I have what they call the 3-gallon kit, and this is the solution that you do it in. It's just I don't know what's in it. I don't care. I just use it, and it does me a good job. This I just replaced. I'd probably had it 10 years, and I put new chemicals in just I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. And there's stuff that settles in it. I always just kind of stir it up. Not sure what it all is, but I do know that once I replaced it, it worked a lot better. Now, you need a power supply. You don't need one as big as this right here, but this, and it needs to be DC power. I've got a smaller one that I use for smaller items usually, but since I'm going to do the Kickstarter, I thought I would get the big one out. It just does a little better job. I've got more power with it. And you need an air pump. This is just an aquarium pump. And you just need to mildly aerate the water or the solution, and that helps the plating. It suspends it in the solution so that it will be attracted to the part that you're going to plate. As far as hooking it all up, you've just got a positive and a negative on your power supply. Black to black and green, or red to red, and this is the bar that's going to be electrically charged. Let's see, I think you can see it. It's just a piece of copper tubing that I bent over on each end, and it's I'm going to hook the negative to the bar, and the positive will be to the anodes. These are the zinc anodes, And these, you can see the corner starting to round off on it. It takes away, it actually takes metal from this and puts it on your, whatever you're plating. And I use a couple of these in there. Just, I've used as many as 4, and you don't need a lot. And you need to plate it about 100 to 110 degrees. So I've got a heater, and you can use a lot of different things. I've seen people use the farm store heaters. This one, I can't even remember where I got it, but I just made a little adapter here so I could get it into the solution. And it just goes in, and I plug that in right away here so I can start getting the solution up to temperature. And then we have the anodes. I take a couple of jumper wires, go from one to the other. Like that. And then I hook the positive lead from the power supply up to the anodes. And then I've got just a little stone here for the aquarium. And that, I've got different things, but that's kind of what I've been using here of late. It seems to work pretty good. And I just plug that into the little pump. And then I can plug it in, and it will start aerating the solution. You don't need a lot. You don't want it to wipe it out. You know, you just want a little bit of aeration in there, just so you're moving the solution around. And that's really probably a little bit too much there. Yeah, that's not so bad right there. And really, that is it at this point. I've got to clean up the parts. This is the zinc brightener. You put a little bit in at the beginning. I just put an ounce or so in there. It's not rocket science. And that will brighten the parts up. So let me go ahead and get the parts kind of cleaned up. Maybe I'll show you a little bit of that. And then we'll show the results later on. I'm heating up the solution here. I just kind of keep track of it with my heat gun here. And you know, we're coming up, we're at about 80 some degrees now. And we'll stop when we get up to about 110. Let me show you what we're doing down here now. These parts, most of these will just be sandblasted or bead blasted, and so that I can keep track of them, they don't blow all over the place, I'm going to string them up on some wire. That way I can blast them without losing them. Just almost everything I have here I can do that with right now. You can see really how corroded and everything that banjo fitting is for the carburetor. And you use copper wire to plate these parts with, and that's what I've got here. These, you use it over and over and over, and this has got a lot of plating on it. But I'll be able to put these in the bead blaster and clean them up very good. This stuff I can hold on to along with this. And the one thing about plating is if it's something that needs to be shiny, the bead blaster is your first stop. You're gonna bead blast it to clean it, then you're going to have to polish it somehow, because the shinier that you want it, you've got to make it shiny before you plate it. So I'll show you what I do for that. I realize you probably can't see a lot of this, but this is the choke lever that I'm working on here. Like I say, this is the first stop for that, because that needs to be shiny. So we'll just do the best we can, cleaning it up with the bead blaster. And then the items that we put on the wire, you just kind of go after them the best you can. As you can tell, you know, this item is not very shiny after it's been bead blasted. Matter of fact, it's kind of got a matte finish. So that's what, you know, the things that you want shiny, they need to be shiny when you plate them. So what I do is I come over to my buffing wheel, and I've got a wire wheel on one side and a Scotch-Brite on the other, and that works very good for cleaning this stuff up. I'm going to start with this part on the wire wheel. You always want to buff on the bottom of the wheel, because if it catches, it's going to throw the item away. It's going to throw it behind it. You see here now how this is starting to shine up, and that's what you want. If you want that really nice golden iridescent coating color to it, like it had, you've got to have it shiny before you plate it. And not every place on the item needs to be shiny, just what you can get to. Just meet your own, whatever satisfies you. And some of it's very hard to get to. And of course you don't want that thing catching and flying all over the place. See, now we're a lot shinier. So I'll go ahead and work on this and some of the smaller parts and show you what I ended up with. Okay, I've got this is what they call the SP degreaser. Once you've got your parts clean and polished, if you're going to do that, then you stick them in the degreaser for about 5 minutes. It's just a strong soap, and then you put it over into the first you'll rinse it like this right here. I've got these parts, and I just rinse it in distilled water, and then we go over to the tank. And we put them in the tank. Okay, once you get it back in the tank, you turn your power on, and you're supposed to figure out the square inches or whatever of your parts, but I've kind of just learned how to set it up. And I generally just get my numbers right on here on my power supply, and I generally try to go at about 2.3 amps, and for the amount of stuff that I'm putting in here. So I've got it in, we've got everything plating. Let's see, it's should be about a half hour and it'll be done, so we'll bring you back then. On this stator, I just take and, boy, this stuff's really brittle. You just have to be very careful and just barely get your razor blade in there. You don't want to cut the wires. And just kind of break it off of there. Well, that's hard. Just got to stay with it. All right, there's the old sheathing. So you can see that the wire is still plenty flexible. It's just the sheathing. This is your wire going to your neutral light switch, and it will be, it's kind of separate there, but it will all go right back into the bundle just like the rest of it. So we'll get this cleaned up and get a new piece of sheathing and put it back on. Alright, new sheathing. Let's just take a look at the end of it here and get everything lined up. And right here's where the neutral safety switch came out. So I'm just going to hold that right there and put me a hole right back in there. See if I can do it without sticking my finger. Just going to stretch it out a little bit and see if we can get our wire in there. You want to put this one in first. Alright, we're through to the other end. I kind of cleaned these up and just looked at them real good and make sure that I didn't nick one, and make sure that they're all still in serviceable condition. And we'll just start trying to get them back up through there. Probably have a little difficulty, it's just the way it works. Once you get them pushed up as far as you can, then just reach in and grab them. Go ahead and slide it down there to where your clamp was before. And that should do her. Still got to get the grommet down there. Probably going to have to, I'll clean this up and heat it up with some warm water, and then I'll slide it down because it's got to go down to about here, I believe. Let's see, where was that? Yep. There's where the clamp by the neutral safety switch got it, and then looks like it's right here. So that's what we'll do. We'll get that cleaned up and heat it up, and it should go right on. Okay, I've got the carburetor soaking in the aluminum brightener. It's just been in there a few minutes. And I think we're ready to pull the parts out of here. So first thing I do is turn my power off. Once it shuts off, I can go ahead and take a peek at stuff. Here's the drain plug, looking pretty nice. And that stays a natural color. First thing I do is go over here, bring it over and rinse it. And then give it a little drying off. Turns out pretty nice. Now let's look at some of the stuff that we're going to chromate. This choke lever. Come over and rinse it. Then we go into the chromate solution. It takes a little time. So you can kind of see it's starting to turn yellow already. You just put it in there until you get the amount of color that you desire. We're getting real close. All right, I think I'll go with that. Give it a rinse. Now let's go over and air dry it. There's a color. Isn't that beautiful? Does a nice job. Alright guys, here's the finished product on our plating today. Got the shifter and the Kickstarter. And these are all the carburetor parts that get the chromate finish. And the plugs and whatnot here that don't, but they turned out pretty nice too. And I'm just finishing up the magneto plate, the stator. We've got our new sheathing on. We've got the grommet pretty close to where it needs to be. And the only thing I've got left to do is to put the connector back on. See how flexible that is? And here's the old one. Now, what I've done here after I've gone with a little wire brush and I've cleaned up these terminals the best I can. And what you need to do is, before you snap them back in, you need to go in here and just lift up a little bit on these little keepers in the back. I've already done it, usually just a little awl like this or something. You can pop those back up so that when you stick it back in the connector, it will stay. And I cleaned all this with electronic cleaner. And here's where your little diagram comes into play. You know, look at it just like you did before. And let's see here, the black wire. So I got a black one with a yellow stripe and I got a black one here. So the black one goes to the top, which would be right there. Let's see, that's got to go up like that. Just push it in until it snaps. And then the one below it is the black with a yellow stripe. And the one below it is vacant. And then we get the yellow with a red stripe. And the yellow with a white stripe. And the green with the white stripe. And there we go. Everything's back together. Be sure you do that. And there's our magneto all cleaned up. I've still got to put a new set of points and condenser on it, but after I get that done, then I can we'll be able to stick that back in the engine along with the cylinder and everything when the time comes for that. Getting the new condenser put in here. Just what you need to do is try to, it's got two little tangs. Get your wires wrapped around the tang to the closest to the flywheel, and then leave this one up until you're done. That's going to hold down the wires, keep them out of stuff. What you really need is a really hot soldering iron, and it needs to be ready before you touch the condenser with it, because you don't want to overheat the condenser. So once you get it hot, get it on there and get your solder on. and get out of there, because you don't want to overheat that thing. Then just take the remaining little tang and just wrap it over the top and press down on it. That way everything's going to stay put. And everything there is hooked up good, and we didn't overheat anything. So we're good to go. Get our new set of points. I like to get this wire on there before I attach it to the plate. Probably best to leave it loose until you get it mounted to the plate, but actually I think yeah, I think this needs to go down. Apologize, my old fat fingers are in the way here. It's pretty close quarters, but it's better than it is if you're trying to do it on the machine. Okay, just kind of poke that. All right, and on this condenser, just make sure that none of the wires or none of the straps, either one of the straps, are touching the external case of the condenser. So it's kind of easy to get a wire hanging over there or something. So just be careful about that. All right, get our carburetor going here. Make sure you get your gasket on there. I saw a little piece of fuzz there, so we got her out. We've got the pilot jet in, and we've got our needle. Make sure you check the needle to make sure that it's not doesn't have a ridge on it. It's not worn. And the spring right here in the end, make sure it's moving. And you take your float arm, and it's got the little tang right here sticking up. That's to limit the downward movement. A pair of pliers here to get my stuff out of the egg carton here. I like the egg carton thing, but it is kind of hard to get my old fat fingers in there. Now, while we've got this at this point, we'll adjust the float level, and it tells you that you measure from where the fuel setter goes. That's right here, the casting part. So it's right here down to the top of the float, and it's supposed to be 6.8, and this one is not even close. So we need to adjust that up a little bit. So you take and just put you, well, looks like I'm going to have to use a pair of pliers there maybe. Just hold this up. Push down a little bit. Just a little more maybe. I think that's pretty close. Yeah, I think we still need a little down. Need to get something that fits in there a little better. There we go. That's good. All right. So 6.8 millimeters from the casting here down to the arm, and that's without the spring being compressed. Okay, should be good there. Okay, forgot this one had the little plate here, so I had to pull this out and reinstall that plate. That should not have changed anything as far as our float level goes, though. Better get that needle in there, Dale. There we go. Okay. Got our new gasket on there. And next thing we need to get in is the needle jet. You just kind of grab it like this, and remember that this slot right here, you see this this little pin right here, that's where that slot goes. See how it just slides right up there. Here's the pin right there. Okay, you probably need to hold that up until you can get your washer. You've got a thick brass washer that goes right there, and then you've got the setter. That's what screws into the end of it here. That's the thing that's going to have the little O-ring on it. Nothing needs to be very tight on these. Okay, and I've got a new O-ring. Actually, I have a Suzuki one here. I can only get it out of the package. There we go. And then we take our floats. Remember, they've got up, so you want to make sure that's up. Otherwise this little pin goes down. And I believe we're good to go here. Just kind of lay it down like this so you can get it in there without the floats falling out. They go like that though. And it's going to be kind of a tight fit until you get the O-ring compressed. And again, don't have to overdo it on the tightening. Okay, now we've got the main jet. It is a 90, just like what it says on the adapter. And just set that into there and give the main jet just a little snug. And I've got to go find one of those washers I just made. No, actually this one is a fiber washer. These the ones I made are a little bit big for this particular model, but they take actually a fiber one anyway. So I've got that. And I'm going to just put a little bit of oil on that just to keep it from scalding. Snug him up. And now we've got the idle screw and spring. They're just going to go in here, and I think I'll put a little lube on it too. And these will be this will be adjusted after you get it in, or after you get it on, because you don't know where that's going to be. And here's the spring for the pilot jet. Just run that down until it stops. No more than just that. It stops. Then back it out 1.5. There's a half, 1.5. That gives us a starting point. And we've got the starter jet. get the plunger and the spring, and that'll go into here. And I know I need a new seal here. I'm going to have to try to locate one. Oops. All right, we're going to take the... This is one of those things where you need more than one hand, or more than two hands, evidently. You got the tang right here for this, for the lock washer. That's got to go on first. That. And the lock washer. And then this. And that lock washer's got, you got to line that tang up with right here. And then get your hook in there. Oh boy, what an ordeal. There. So I'll put it on my list to see if I can find the little rubber seal. You can't get it from Suzuki. You may be able to get it from just a Mikuni splier. Or I might find one on a used one. Okay. That's looking like it's working as it should. And we've got a new seal. These are still available from Suzuki. This was the old one. See how flat it is? Still pliable though, but it never seal. Most of these I have to get from MasterCard just by dimension, but the smaller one you can still get from Suzuki, and it's not too awful bad. I want to say it's $3 or something. I kind of balk when I have to spend $7 or $8 for an O-ring, and that's when I start looking elsewhere. Okay, we've got our needle, and it's set in the second from the top groove. And it's gonna, you've got the little retainer that goes in on top of it. I think this one, the water, all the water that got in this engine came in through the carburetor. It didn't have an air cleaner on it. Okay, so we've got that, we've got the spring, and I'm not going to put that in right now because I've got to re-glue the washer, the rubber washer into the top. All right, so we are out of carburetor parts, so that should be a good thing that we are, I guess. And there's our cable adjuster. Okay, what I'm going to use to glue this is just some contact adhesive, 3M General Trim adhesive. I'm just going to squirt a little in a little container here, get in there with a Q-tip. And just apply a little around the circumference there. And then, since it's contact cement, that means that it bonds to itself, so you've got to apply it to both surfaces. Just like that. And by the time you can do that and you can get it poked back in there, it'll be tacky enough to hold. So there that is. And probably the best way to get it to stay down is just to put it under the spring pressure a little bit there. Probably not going to turn it all the way down though, just turn it down till it seats right there. And then we can put our adjustment screw into the top. Okay, so there's our carburetor, ready to go. Okay guys, I've got one other thing I need to address, and I really can't address it the way I'd like to because I don't have the parts. But I had a viewer ask me how I install a new gasket on the flip-top Suzuki gas cap. And I'm just going to kind of go through the motions on it. I know it's not the same because it is kind of difficult, but this is the best I can do right now. I do have a gasket on order, so the next video of this type where I'm doing little parts of the project, I'll go ahead and go through it. But for now, just in case he needs to get it on, I'll go ahead and kind of go through that. Okay, on these things, they are kind of difficult because you have a limited amount of space in between here, but nonetheless, you can just hold your thumb on this and hold it up, and that's where I lay the gasket in here. I believe it's the you got a narrow band and a wide band, and the wide band goes toward the gas tank, so it would be facing you here. So just lay that thing in here and then try to get it over the, it's got a lip on it, so try to get it started there, and then just start spinning this a little at a time and working it. You can spin this cap and you just keep working that down until you get all the way around, and you just work it around. And you could put a little soap and water on it too if you'd like. But yeah, they are kind of tough because you have a limited amount of space in between here. But if you'll just hold your thumb down on that, once you put it in, hold your thumb down on it, and then just kind of work it right here in this area that you can get to, and then turn it a little bit, and then work it down that way, and just keep going until you make it all the way around. That should do it. So here in a week or so, when I get my gasket, I forgot I even needed to do this. Actually, I thought I had them already. So I come out here when I got the comment this morning and looked for it, and I said, well, I guess I don't have one. But they are tough, but that's how I do it. Hey guys, that's just a bunch of little things, maybe more than you really wanted to know, but it's all stuff that's got to be done when you're doing a project like this, and a lot of it's not very glorious, but it's just stuff that's got to be done. That's how I do some of it. There are certainly other ways to do a lot of these things. Just do whatever works best for you, and the way I do it, if it is easier to you, then go ahead and do it. But that way, you know, do whatever's easiest. That's the way I always look at it. And I learn stuff from people all the time. They say, hey, why don't you, how come you didn't do it this way or something like that? And I just, you know, didn't think about it. So we learn every day. Thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.